Alright, ready to move on to the intermediate version of GBO Hawai'i. So GBO Hawai'i and the intermediate version is not that much different than the beginner version of GBO Hawai'i. There's just a few wrinkles added in. As before, the instructions that come in the box are for the advanced version of the game, but you can refer to them because most everything is explained in there. So after watching this video, if you still have some clarification issues, you can check in on the written instructions that should be uploaded on the website, but also in the box itself. So the intermediate version, if you remember, in the beginner version, you were actually taking 5 cards out of the chance card deck to set up. In this game, in the intermediate version, you're actually just removing 3. So you're going to go ahead and take out all the cards that say add capacity and leave in the 2 IPO cards. So now we're going to play with the initial public offering. You have to keep an eye on this space. So this space is in the bottom left corner of the board, and it is now active. In the beginner game, that space is treated as a blank space. So what is an initial public offering? Well, an IPO is basically just a way to sell the business, but the business keeps going. So in essence, you're getting investors from the outside who see your business and like it and want to own a piece of it. So basically, this is when investors come in and buy shares of stock in a company. Typically, the entrepreneurs get very, very wealthy. So in this game, if you were the one who started this green hotel, for example, you would be able to sell this through an IPO and get double this initial investment back. So you'd get $215,000, which is what you laid out, but then you get an additional $215,000. This can significantly increase your chances of winning the money part of the game, so it's a very important card. The cool part about the IPO is that you also get to keep all your job credits. So you get 2 green-collar workers and 1 entrepreneur. So you keep the 3 jobs that you created. You also keep your eco credits. So you have this 1 dump truck and this 1 barrel of oil for this green hotel, and you get to keep those for your final tally at the end of the game. So when you play an IPO card, you're basically going to have somebody choose one of your businesses at random. In essence, they will close their eyes and you will shuffle your cards in front of them and they will pull one of the cards. And if, for example, it's this business and you sell your green hotel through your initial public offering, you then just flip that card over on your side of the table. So you get to keep track of the green jobs and the eco credits. The one caveat is that you no longer earn dividends on this because you're no longer the sole owner of this particular business. So this $25,000 per year will stop flowing in at the beginning of every turn. It's kind of a small price to pay for that extra $215,000, but something to keep an eye on. So the best strategy for an IPO is to play it kind of close to the end of the game. You want to basically collect your dividends all throughout the game, and then right at the end of the game, sell the business through an IPO. The next main difference between the beginner game and the intermediate game is that in the beginner game, you're only playing with events. In this game, you actually want to use the entire policies and events deck. So you're going to take the whole policies and events deck, shuffle them together, and lay 1 card face down next to each one of the black spaces on the board. There are 4 total. So when you come up on that and you're the first person to hit that black space, you still have to stop and you flip over the card. In the case that that card is an event, you just play that event, which just happens and then is done, and then you take that card and you throw it back in the box and you're done with that. If it is a policy, however, that card will stay in play for the rest of the game unless something else happens to change it. So in this case, if you hit that first space and you flip over this card, the state's promoting its ecotourism industry in a new advertising campaign, and that sort of thing has long-term repercussions as opposed to events which just sort of happen and they're gone. So for each business that you have that's run by an ecotourism entrepreneur, you're gaining money right away, but then throughout the rest of the game, you're drawing resource cards. So unless that card is then flipped over by something else, or somebody vetoes a policy or changes it, then it just stays there and continues to benefit you. So this is very important that when you have a kahuna card or some other way where you can actually look ahead at the policies that are upcoming, this is a great way for you to plan your investments and say, ooh, I want to invest in ecotourism because I know that I'm going to be getting $30,000 plus resource cards every turn for the rest of the game, which will really help you. Some policies will do the opposite, where you're actually going to be losing resource cards, losing chance cards, losing outrigger cards, or something every turn for the rest of the game if you have businesses that are in those industries that are affected. So this becomes very important as the game goes on and you're building up a pile of resources or you're losing a pile of resources that can really change your strategy as the game goes on. Things can get a little bit complex if you have multiple policies going on and each player's got a handful of businesses started, but just kind of keep an eye on what policies are out there and go through it systematically and see which businesses are affected and which players are gaining cards and which players are losing cards. And of course, you want to be nice. You want to make sure that the players who are losing cards remember that they're supposed to be losing cards, but this is sustainability. We want to be friendly and, of course, try and help each other wherever possible. So do it in a sportsmanlike manner, but make sure they lose their cards anyway. And so you remember in the beginner game, we talked about this Kahuna card and how the first bullet of it didn't really make sense for the beginner game. Well, in the intermediate game, now it comes into play. So if you have a policy that's currently in play and you don't like it, you can now get rid of it. So you can use your Kahuna card, go through the policies and events deck, preferably not on your turn because it does take a little while to do, and find a card that favors you and put it into play and get rid of a policy that does not favor you. So if a policy is favoring one of your opponents or a policy is hurting you, you want to replace it and try and put something in its place that actually favors you more. The last major difference between the beginner game and the intermediate game is that in the beginner game you don't play the governor's campaign. You just basically treat it as a normal space. In the intermediate game you're going to go ahead and play the governor's campaign. What this is basically an election season where there's one candidate that kind of gets some money from the oil industry, and then there's another candidate that is more favorable to sustainability policies. What you want to do is try and raise money as a team to help that friendly governor win the election. So if you raise more money, you have a much bigger chance of winning. There's never a 100% chance of winning or a 100% chance of losing. But in essence, you want to follow the cues on the board here. If you raise an average of this much money per player, then you can win with these rolls of the dice. So more money you put in, more chance you have of winning. The repercussions of winning and losing are all written up here on the board itself, but they're pretty dire if you lose and they're pretty great if you win, so it's definitely worth pitching in some money. So good luck. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy the intermediate version of the game. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in the comments section of our website at gbohawai'i.com or on facebook.com/gbohawai'i, and we'll try and get back to you as quickly as possible. Enjoy!